Okay, so before anyone says anything, no, I am not actually a babysitter. You gotta understand, back when I was in high school, my parents wanted me to like get some form of job or certificate for something to be proud of. Because my sister, like that was older than me, always had like participation awards. So let's just say I ended up getting my babysitter's license as like my own self-reward. And let's just say it ended up getting me into some very interesting situations. All right, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So today's story takes place back when I was in high school. I was 16 years old, and I remember I was just basically like a basic junior in high school. And I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of things my parents wanted me to do growing up, and that was, you know, become successful, gain awards, you know, the typical parent stuff. So I remember what I decided to do was, you know, go for my babysitter's license. Because there was always a girl in my class who was like always saying how like she makes so much money off babysitting and how it's so easy to get the license and stuff. So I remember I ended up taking a babysitter's course. When I told my parents about it, they were actually pretty surprised about it, but at the same time, they said that it would actually help out my future if I ever have a kid. And I already know if I ever have a kid, I'm naming it Yoda. But that's not the point. Going on though, I remember I ended up going to a church to basically get my babysitter's license. I have no idea why it's in a church. For the guy that says the word Devil's Tango me going into a church is pretty rare. Well, not really. I'm actually Christian, but that's not the point. I remember I ended up going to a church, and it was a really nice church. Amen for that. And basically, I ended up getting my babysitter's license. I remember I took like 3 different classes, and it was really fun and actually pretty enjoyable. And when it came to the final test, I remember I ended up walking out of there acing it like it was no problem. It was actually pretty easy. But then I realized, I remember when I was coming out of the babysitter's teaching place, aka the church, I ended up running into a guy in a suit. Now, I don't know why, he was just kind of standing outside the church, not entering in, so I thought maybe it was like some sinner that was scared to go in to confess his sins or whatever. But I remember he ended up walking up to me saying, "Hey, yo, excuse me, are you a babysitter?" Yeah. Because I was holding my certificate at the time, so I was able to say, yeah, I'm a babysitter. And then he ended up telling me, "Okay, well, I'll pay you $1,000 an hour to take care of my daughter." Oh, like, yeah, sure, I could do that, is what I told him afterwards. And apparently, like, this guy, like, when I started heading for the parking lot to get his card to call him later to get, like, basically the address of everything, he ended up having a really nice McLaren that he was driving. At this point, I was like, dude, what kind of dad has like a McLaren like this? Like, holy, this guy lives good, dude. So I remember I complimented him on his car, and I ended up getting his card for basically the babysitting job. And one thing led to another, he ended up leaving in his car. I remember a chick that was in my babysitter's class walked up to me saying, "Oh, like he's still looking for a babysitter? That's so odd." And then ended up walking away. I was confused when she said that, and actually ended up running up to her saying, "Wait, what do you mean by that?" She ended up telling me that she had a daughter that was, well, a real brat, and that no one really wanted to babysit her. At that point, I was like, whatever. I'm a guy. Maybe I can handle things better. I don't know. Really sexist thought, but you know, it is what it is. Going on, I remember basically, I ended up going back home and getting on the phone, and I ended up calling him and asked him when should I start? Because I do want to start babysitting to make money. Because $1,000 an hour for a high school student, that's like gold mine, dude. So I remember I ended up going for the phone and calling him, and when I did call him, he ended up telling me, "Oh yeah, so I live up in this address. If you want to come up anytime soon, go for it. Actually, I have a meeting tonight, so if you can take care of her tonight, that'll be awesome." Like literally tonight is what I told him. And he's like, "Oh yeah, let's just tonight, like just pop up, babysitter, do what you gotta do, and then afterwards just dip." Oh, okay, is what I said. So I remember I ended up getting in my car and driving all the way over to his place. When I got there, I remember he had such a big house and was one of those like super modern homes that looked like a Minecraft square box. Like it was super luxury. So I remember as I walked in, he was like looking at me saying, "Okay, so basically here's the kitchen. There's 2 living rooms. One of them's like a special living room for my guests, and the other one's just a friendly family living room, so you can go look at there. Upstairs is the bathroom. The daughter's room is upstairs to the left near the bathroom, and yeah, you should be set." When he told me that, I'm like, "Yeah, no problem, sir." And he ended up paying me $1,000 up front. I don't know why he paid it up front. Usually you pay the babysitter after, but he paid it up front like I needed it or something. I ended up saying thank you, and he ended up leaving in his car and driving away. At that point, I remember I was basically stuck there. I ended up sitting down, and I basically waited, and 2 minutes later, a girl ends up coming downstairs. Now, you guys are probably gonna think I'm insane, okay? Because the title of this video does seem really out of pocket, but I will say this much. The girl coming downstairs ended up saying, "Who are you?" And no joke, this girl, when I turned my head around, I was like, okay, there's gotta be another daughter. There's no way I'm babysitting this one. Because this girl was literally my age. She was 16 and went to a different school where all like the preppy kids go. Well, aka a private school, but you guys know what I mean. Like, I absolutely was mind boggled when I looked at her saying, "Oh, like, I'm the babysitter, I think, for your sister." She looks at me and says, "I don't have a sister. Are you like the new babysitter that's supposed to take care of me?" Yeah, is what I said afterwards. She ended up looking at me thinking, "Oh, okay, well, I mean, like, you're kind of cute. I guess I'll be nice to you." Wait, what? And then afterwards, I realized she ended up going for the door as if she was about to leave, and I told her, whoa, 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 where do you think you're going? I ended up closing the door on her and saying, "You can't just leave." She looked at me saying, "Excuse me, but you're not my dad, you're my babysitter. And honestly, like, how old are you? Like, the same age as me? Like, leave me alone." So she ended up trying to open the door, and I ended up slamming it again and saying, "Listen, you're not leaving. Your dad paid me. I don't want to do something wrong. You're under my supervision." When I said that, she looked at me, like, kind of like with a smirk and a smile. She's like, "Oh, chill. So like, you're like really like hardcore babysitting, huh? I guess is what I said afterwards, kind of like stuttering and confused of what the hell's going on. Then afterwards, I remember she kept looking at me saying, okay, well, like, I mean, whatever. And she ended up going back upstairs to her room. When she went upstairs to her room, I remember I really had to go to the bathroom like after like 10 minutes later. So I ended up going upstairs to the bathroom that was near her room. And when I was in there taking a fat one, I remember I heard like through the wall, because, you know, the walls are really thin in that house. Basically that she was talking to some girl saying, oh my gosh, like my babysitter's actually like pretty hot, but like I can't come to the party tonight. Like just tell like Devin that I won't be there. But like, I'm not gonna lie, this babysitter might really kick it for me. Wait, what is what I thought? And I remember right at the moment I ended up plopping a giant fat, okay, you know what? That's not the point, but going on. I remember when I came out of the bathroom, she ended up coming out of her room and she looked at me kind of embarrassed as if I already knew what she just said to her friend. But I tried to play it cool and say, oh, hey. And I ended up just going straight downstairs. When I went downstairs, she ended up following behind me and saying, oh, like, so do you like want to watch a movie? Not really, is what I said. And I ended up sitting on the couch, laying back, and basically was on my phone. She looked at me again and said, okay, well, like, do you play any sports? Like, what school do you go to? I told her the school I go to, and she was in shock. She was like, oh, like, weren't you the guy on the rugby team? I am in the rugby team, yeah, is what I told her afterwards, because apparently she recognized me from rugby. Apparently our school versus hers, and I didn't even recognize her or something. But apparently she was a cheerleader for the school, and one thing led to another. We ended up talking more and more, and I ended up asking her the main question that really freaked me out for this whole thing. Why does your dad want me babysit you? She ended up looking at me saying, oh, well, like, my dad, like, always knows, like, sneak out and stuff, so he always, like, try to hire, like, these, like, babysitters that, like, think they can control me, but, like, they just can't. They're, like, dumb. Okay. Why don't you just stay home then? Just relax. Like, don't you love being at home? Listen, when you have all the money in the world and your daddy gives it to you, the only fun thing to do is go out and spend it. And if I can't go out, what's the point of me staying at home? Okay, fair enough is what I ended up saying. And afterwards, she ended up giving me a tour of the house and stuff and the crazy pool that was in the backyard. And one thing led to another. We ended up going to her bedroom because apparently she had like one of these like cool TVs that came out of like this box, like machinerized. I don't know. It was super really cool. And I remember we ended up sitting on the bed watching a movie, and yeah, we kind of started cuddling, and one thing led to another. We ended up doing the devil's tango. I don't know. Let's just say like for babysitting, I was definitely sitting on something. Anyways, though, going on with the story, basically, we ended up doing the devil's tango. And I ended up hearing a really loud engine coming from outside of her balcony. And at that point, I knew, oh snap, her dad's home. So I ended up getting dressed and already ran downstairs and basically ended up sitting on the couch just waiting. And when he ended up walking through the door, he ended up coming in saying, hey, I just saw my daughter's light shut off. Is she going to bed? I looked at him all nervousness, like just shaking. My hair was a mess from doing the devil's tango. And I didn't know what to say. So I looked at him and said, she just went to bed. I'm almost done here. It was good working with you. And as I'm heading for the door, I remember he's like, wait. Let's go check on her. I'm like, okay. And as we were coming up the stairs, I remember he ended up telling me, yeah, she likes to sneak out a lot. I didn't tell you. I apologize. If she snuck out right now, I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, really? Is what I said. And then right as we go through the door, the lights were shut off, and instantly he quickly like took a glance with his flashlight, and he saw his daughter was dead asleep on the bed with a blanket over her, kind of just instantly just being really tired. I remember I looked and I was like, what? Like she's actually asleep? In my mind, I was thinking that, but then I remember her dad ended up looking at me saying, for the first time, I'm not gonna lie, you actually did a good job babysitting. He ended up basically giving me another like extra $500 for being a good babysitter for the first time, and I ended up leaving. At that point, as I was leaving, I remember I ended up like basically got in my car and I saw her in the balcony waving goodbye to me. All I'm gonna say is that this was a mission success, but I'm not gonna lie, there is another story where basically I did get caught, and with a guy with a lot of money, you don't want to mess up with those guys. Okay, so one thing you guys should know about me is that I'm not really one for gang affiliation. Like, don't get me wrong, I get it out there. There's actual gangsters that are willing to die, you know, for a brother or another. But for me specifically, I'm not gonna lie to you. If there's such thing as gangs out there, I'd rather not be a part of one, because me being in a gang is like me basically spitting in God's face, asking for forgiveness at the same time. It's just super bizarre to me, because like, you know, you're loving someone so much, but yet it's just such a dangerous thing to be in. But at the same time though, one thing I will say is that today's story does get insane because, well, let's just say I was almost a part of a gang affiliation, and basically let's just say dating a mafia boss's daughter isn't easy. But let's just get straight into this insane story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to another crazy story. So today's story is honestly a quick one, because honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, I knew what I was getting myself into and had to jump out of it instantly. But honestly, the story starts off back when I was in high school. You see, back in high school, I was just a basic kid that literally did whatever walked. You know, if it was walking, I'm going to do the devil's tango with it. And I remember one time there was a new girl in our school who recently just joined in, except a lot of people did not want to be around this girl for some reason. And I remember I walked up to one of the girls that I already was like good friends with, and yes, I did do the devil's tango with her as well. And I asked her the basic common question of, why don't you like this girl? I remember she looked at me and she told me, oh, like apparently like she's like really gangstery, and like, I don't know, like she said she could kill all of us with like one phone call. I had no idea what this meant. I guess like calling the police in my mind was the first thing I was thinking about, because who else could you call to kill people? I have no idea. And in my mind, I'm gonna be honest here, the only time I heard about gangsters was literally in probably Grand Theft Auto. Other than that, if it wasn't from GTA, well then I don't know who else is she gonna call other than the Green Gang. So I remember basically I decided that it would be smart for me to maybe walk up to her and have a conversation with her. Either I just walk up to her and, you know, try to pull some riz, or I just say hello and realize that this was a mistake and just basically walk away. Anyways, the whole point is I want to go talk to this girl. All right, so that's what I did. I remember I ended up walking around the school with one of my buddies to basically find who this girl was, and honestly, she stuck out like a sore thumb. In a crowd of people, like anyone could really notice her, because I remember when I looked into this crowd of people that was literally in like the foyer of our school where everyone was surrounded before school started, she was definitely sticking out because she was wearing this outfit that like made her seem super odd. Like it was such a girly girl outfit, but at the same time, everything she was wearing was more expensive than my, well, entire outfit. Like no joke, including my backpack and the textbooks in it. It was super weird and I found it super funny. So I remember I decided to walk up to her, and when I did, I remember she saw me and she looked the other way. Now this is the one time I'm actually gonna say this. This is the one girl that I've seen actually not interested in me. As a guy who actually like, you know, goes around and, you know, basically does the devil's tango with almost every chick, this one girl was just not interested in me whatsoever. So I remember I did the same thing, because once a girl shows no interest to you, you show the same thing back. You show no interest. And since this girl was always begging for attention apparently from a bunch of other guys wanting her, I remember one time I ended up basically sitting in the cafeteria, and when she walked in, a bunch of guys decided to stand up and go say hello to her. As for me, I sat there and I basically ignored her. I remember she saw me and she looked at me and she knew that one time I was going to approach her, but I didn't because I walked away, right? Because she didn't want my attention. But this time when I was in the cafeteria, I decided to not even, you know, notice she was there. So what did she end up doing? Well, since I made the alpha male move of not going towards my prey and waiting for her to come to me, I basically waited and she did exactly that. She walked up to me saying, oh, like, hey, like, I never got your name. What was it again? And that's when I introduced myself and decided to pull my prey in. That sounded so bad since I'm talking about high school, but to be honest, like, in a way, it was a part of the method, okay? That's all I'm saying. Going on from there, though, I remember I was basically just talking to, like, you know, this girl as she was literally right in front of me, and there was, like a bunch of guys surrounding her as well, so it made the conversation more awkward. But I remember I just basically told her some basic things about myself, like, I drove a car, I'm handsome, I actually make money on, like, the buffoons behind you. Like, I said all the basic stuff that, you know, she basically wanted to hear and what most women want to hear. Because let's be real here, if you walk up to a girl and say, yeah, I play video games for 8 hours a day, make videos on it, and basically just sit and jerk off, there's no way, and I mean no way, she's gonna be interested in you. So I just told her what she wanted to hear, and she ended up liking me, and one thing led to another. She ended up wanting to hang out after school. After the first day of me hanging out with this girl, she wanted to hang out with me after school. I have no idea what magical powers I possessed, but let's just say the alpha male status that we're learning from Sneeko and Andrew Tate today are really showing me the ways of life. That sounds really bad because there's a lot of beef between Moist Critical and Sneeko that I really want to talk about, but we'll save that for another video. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember basically I ended up meeting up with this girl after school, and we ended up talking to her and ended up being really nice to her actually. Me and her, we actually really got along as we were just, you know, in my car driving around and basically doing the same thing over and over again. Because I was driving laps around the block that I was living on because I didn't really want to bring her home, to be honest. Because I knew my parents were not going to be happy with this kind of girl because, you know, she was one of those girls that basically thinks they earned everything or deserved everything. So I remember I ended up telling her, oh, like, what house do you live in? I remember I ended up typing down her address to just basically take her home because there was no way I was going to bring this girl home and do the devil's tango. And I remember when I ended up basically putting down her address, I realized that she lived in a nice area of our neighborhood, and she lived in like the hills, basically, as we call it down here in Vancouver. And me knowing this, I was actually very surprised. So what I decided to do was I basically ended up driving her home, and when I got to her place, I saw she lived in an awesome mega mansion. Like, no joke, she lived in like one of those giant houses that have so much space to the point where you don't even know what to do with it. So I remember I ended up basically parking my car in her driveway, and me, as I'm like, you know, just telling her to like basically get the hell out of my car, I'm actually like terrified of you because you're so rich. She ended up looking at me saying, oh, like, do you want to like come inside? Sure, is what I ended up telling her. So I ended up basically getting out of my car, and I ended up basically walking into her house with her. When we walked in, I realized that there were some people at the door, basically kind of like looking kind of sketchy, looking at her and basically looking at me as if they wanted to literally beat me to a pulp. But luckily, this girl was there to be like my Lord and Savior, and she basically just let me pass through. And me and her, we were basically walking around the house, and she was showing me around. And one thing I realized that there was a lot of this one certain symbol that I don't know how to draw it for you. I don't remember it to this day, but I remember there was a symbol that was like basically around the house that I realized in like most paintings as well. I didn't ask about it because I didn't know what it was. But then afterwards, 2 minutes later, I remember as this girl was like showing me like her bedroom almost, or getting to her bedroom, out of nowhere, I see this guy in a white suit, kind of fat, you know, kind of overweight, look at me and say, "Hey, who are you?" And he had like this really like heavy like Russian accent. I didn't know what to say, so I remember I turned around and said, "Oh, hi, like my name is Bubba." I ended up shaking his hand and he looked at me saying, "What are you doing here?" I ended up looking at him and I told him like basically how like, you know, I'm friends with his daughter at school, and like, you know, I am nothing special, I am just a friend, is basically what I was trying to get across to him. I remember he looked at me and started chuckling, and then he shook my hand, and when he shook my hand, I remember I saw this same symbol tattooed on his wrist, and then that's when I knew this guy's some kind of boss, ringleader, cult leader, something that's going to basically get me killed. So I remember he ended up saying, "Okay, well, have fun now," and he ended up walking away. But as he walked away, two other like mafia members basically ended up just walking up like, you know, behind him and looking at me, staring at me like they were going to literally beat me to a pulp. I can't express that enough. I was actually terrified. So I remember I was standing there thinking, okay, well, I'm just gonna go into her bedroom. And that's what I did. I went into a bedroom, and me and her, we kind of got cuddly together, and we started watching a movie on this giant TV that she had in her room. And I look at her and say, "So like, what does your dad do for work?" Because I was genuinely curious. And apparently she told me, "Oh, like, I don't know, I can't really like talk about it because like, I don't know, apparently the government's after him today. Like, I don't know, it's some weird stuff. The government's after him," is what I said afterwards. Yeah, the government, if you're listening, reminder, this was like 5 to 6 years ago. So if you're already like coming after my door to basically figure out who they are, I'm telling you right now, I have no idea where they went. But going on, I remember basically from there, I ended up, you know, basically cuddling with her still, and we ended up doing the devil's tango. But right after, I remember, I don't know where I heard the door knock, but it wasn't like a normal knock, like your mom's gonna walk in and give you cookies. It was one of those knocks where like basically like it was like someone's gonna kill you kind of knock. So me being terrified, I remember I ended up trying to put on my clothes as fast as I can, but she couldn't put on her clothes fast enough because apparently she was slow as balls. So she ended up telling me to basically jump out the window. So that's what I did. I jumped out the window and ran towards my car, but I realized that my car was surrounded by men that were basically going to kill me if I ran towards my car, almost basically not wearing anything. So what I decided to do was I basically ended up calling my dad to come pick me up, and I left her car there and told her to drive her to my school tomorrow. And that's what she ended up doing. She drove my car to basically school the next day. And she asked me why did I just go inside the car, and I told her how there was men surrounding the car. And then yeah, one thing led to another. I basically friend zoned her. To this day, sometimes she does message me, but I don't know. I'm not really one for the mafia. All right, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So today's story actually takes place back when I was in high school, and this was actually, funny enough, my grade 12 year. I remember I was a senior in high school, and I won't lie to you, I was basically the master of doing the devil's tango, because I was doing it so often. It got to the point where, I'm not gonna lie, I would basically know I'm graduating doing almost half of the girls in my high school. But obviously, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, from doing the devil's tango so much in my high school and doing girls from my high school, it got really boring because girls talk a lot, and when they talk together, it just keeps going and going. So knowing that a lot of the girls in my high school didn't want to do anything with me anymore, since it was almost my senior year and I basically done the devil's tango with a lot of them, I basically decided to go outsourcing. And by that, I mean, you know, just hit up girls on Tinder, go online, and just basically go out and meet girls that I never met before. Usually be friends of friends, or, you know, my homies' friends. I don't know. It really just depends on what they were. There was even one time where I did my homie's mom, but that's a different story for another day. Anyways, I remember one day I was at home and it was a wonderful weekend and I really had nothing to do. I remember my parents went out on vacation because they wanted to go do their own thing. So as for me, I just ended up being home bored alone. And when I was alone, I remember I basically just started to lounge around the couch, being bored and thinking, hey, this would be the perfect time to invite a chick over. Why don't I do that? So I remember I was scrolling through Snapchat, trying to find any hot chick that, you know, would basically be down to chill and, you know, do the devil's tango. And then from there, when I realized I had no success on Snapchat, I decided to go on Tinder and swipe like nonstop. Like, no joke, I was swiping right on every girl. But then, I'm not gonna lie, me being so down bad, I got so bored and I just realized that there was no success even from going on Tinder. So now at this point, I had no idea what to do. I really wanted to do something, but I didn't know what to do at all. So instead, I remember I ended up messaging the boys group chat saying, yo, you guys down to grind some COD zombies? And all of them were down, and I remember we all ended up hopping on our Xboxes and playing Call of Duty Zombies. Now, if you know anything about Call of Duty Zombies, you know that the game mode can last for a very long time. If you have the right team, you just keep going round after round. It could take up to hours. And me, I was playing the game for literally hours with them. Hours on end, to the point where I got really hungry. I remember I got hungry and I was just kind of sitting there on my Xbox and I'm like, guys, I'm super hungry. Like, let me go downstairs and get some of to eat real quick. And I remember the boys were like, all right, whatever. And we all ended up just basically leaving and taking a break. And we ended up going to go get food. When I went downstairs to my kitchen, I realized that my mom didn't really do grocery shopping that day or the day before when they went on vacation. Because, well, I guess I was the only one home. So they expected me to do it my own since I had a job at the time. So I remember me being super hungry. I basically didn't have any food at home. I remember at first I was warming up toast and eating butter. And, you know, I was basically going through what I could eat. It got to the point where I ate cereal at midnight. Like, it got to that point. Until the next day when I got really hungry and I had no idea what to do. I remember the same cycle happened again. I went on Tinder. I tried to find a girl to hang out with. I even considered myself going out and going to a bar, but I realized that legal age is actually 19 and not 18 like it is in Alberta. You guys don't know I'm in Vancouver, so yeah, that sucks. But going on, from there I didn't know what to do, and then I decided to do the one thing that probably would have been the best idea. Message the homies again and play more Call of Duty Zombies. So I remember I ended up messaging them again and went through the whole cycle once again. We basically started playing video games together, had fun, until one of my homies said, yo guys, I'm gonna get off. I don't really feel like being on, to be honest. I don't know. I just kind of just bored. And it ended up just getting off. I don't know why. I guess he was just being emotional, and for some reason he'd always flex that he's depressed. So in a way, it kind of just became a common thing for him to always leave out of nowhere. And then I remember an hour or so afterwards, we kept playing Call of Duty multiplayer after that, playing Search and Destroy since there was less of us. And I realized one thing. I ended up becoming starved. Like, no joke, I was so hungry to the point where cereal just wasn't gonna cut it. So I remember I basically went downstairs to my kitchen and looked around and realized that there was still nothing to eat. And me, I'm not gonna lie, in no way was I rich back then, so me spending money was like the last thing I really wanted to do. But you know what? I said whatever and decided to order a pizza. I remember I ordered a large pizza for myself just so it could last for a couple days while my parents are on vacation. And I remember I ordered a large pizza, half pepperoni and half Hawaiian. Because, you know, I like the best of both worlds, I guess. And if you don't like Hawaiian pizza, you don't believe pineapple should be on pizza, you're just a weirdo. Anyway, sorry, going on with the story, I remember I basically put that in order and my buddies were like, oh, you're having a pizza time? That's sick, dude. I'm like, yeah, man. Started to flex that I ordered pizza. And then afterwards, I remember like 20 minutes later, I get a knock on my door and I go downstairs. I remember when I went downstairs, I ended up opening my door and I saw her. If you guys are wondering who I saw a really, really hot chick that I had no idea who she was, but damn was she fine. I remember I opened the door and it was my parents' house I was at, by the way, and nor was I living alone yet. And I remember when I opened that door and I saw her, I kind of just, you know, basically leaned on the door saying, hey, you got my pizza for me? Being all confident. Because, you know, I know how to pull the girls, I guess. She ended up looking at me and she started like kind of like looking at me all weirdly, and she had massive cherries, not to mention, okay? Like, that's the main thing I was staring at, that and her lips. And no joke, she ended up telling me, hey, so the pizza was $22.30. And I remember I was like, oh yeah, just give me the pizza real quick. So I ended up getting the pizza. I opened it in front of her and I was like, oh, perfect. My favorite pizzas are both here. Trying to make a conversation starter. And luckily it worked. I remember she ended up saying, oh, my favorite pizza is Hawaiian. I actually have one in the car. I'm probably going to eat after my shift. And I remember I looked at her and I'm like, when's your shift over? She looks at me and says, oh, it's like off in like, you know, basically like 10 minutes. This is my last order for the night. And I remember I looked at her and said, well, I mean, I don't know. I have a pretty large pizza here and I kind of don't want to eat it alone. She looks at me and starts laughing and she's like, oh, what are you trying to say here? And I basically told her to come inside for pizza and just hang out with me instead. She ended up looking at the house and started looking at me and she's like, do you live with your parents? I ended up looking at her saying, nope, not at all. No, I moved out, you know, did a couple investments. She looked at me again. She's like, wait, how old are you? I'm 19, you know, making hard work. Yeah, you know, real estate, you know, trying to sound all confident in myself when in reality, I'm not gonna lie to you. I was still in school and I was playing video games. Like, I don't know. I kind of just pulled it off as if I knew what I was doing. I remember she ended up coming into my house and then afterwards we started eating pizza together and being all, you know, romantic with each other. I won't lie to you. It became pretty awkward at first because, you know, it's totally random to invite your delivery woman that literally delivered your own pizza inside your house. But as she came into my house, I remember I kind of like ran through my house quickly and went upstairs and stuff and went to my parents' bedroom and took down all the pictures of family. And I just left one so I seemed like I'm not a psychopath that doesn't want to see his family around. But, you know, I left one photo of the family picture and basically everything else about my little sisters and everything I took down. I remember afterwards, I went back to the living room and I saw her. She opened a pizza and I turned on the TV and we started watching Netflix. We started watching a show. I don't really know what show because I want to say like less than 5 minutes later, we literally started making out on the couch and I literally started talking to her and stuff. We were making out and talking and then afterwards, one thing led to another. I literally just stood up and, you know, just told her, hey, want to go upstairs? We ended up going upstairs and we ended up going in my bedroom. And I remember I ended up turning off my TV, but I forgot to turn off my Xbox and the boys were still on. I remember as the boys were still on, I remember I had my headset beside my bed with the mic on and literally the whole time I basically did the Devil's Tango with the delivery driver while basically my Xbox mic was on. So you can already picture what the boys were hearing. Yeah, kind of awkward. I remember remember afterwards, when all that went down, I ended up hearing random noises beside me as this girl was like literally on top of me, of the boys saying, bro, I think Bubba's doing it. And I ended up getting my headset on me in the middle of me doing the devil's tango. And all the boys were like, Bubba, what are you doing, bro? Turn off your mic, turn off your Xbox. And I remember I literally just stood up and I ended up turning off my Xbox. And I remember this delivery driver girl just ended up looking at me saying, was your Xbox on the whole time? Oh yeah, I forgot to turn it off. You know, making it seem like I had no one else in the Xbox party. And then afterwards, my phone ended up vibrating with a phone call from one of my homies that was in the Xbox party. And I literally answered it saying, yo, what's going on? And he's like, dude, I heard everything. And for some reason, iPhone speakers are so loud that the woman ended up hearing it, standing up and saying, that is actually so gross, Bubba. And then she ended up going downstairs, taking one slice of pizza, putting her clothes on, and then leaving. It was super awkward and embarrassing, but I'll tell you one thing. Hey, at least I got to do the devil's tango. Anyways, guys, that's basically it for today's story. Make sure you do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.